In today's video, I'm sharing 7 books that I think are valuable to add to your sewing collection if you want to learn fitting techniques. I'm Sharon with Sharon Sews. Welcome to my channel. This is where we talk about sewing and dressmaking. I'm so happy that you're here. I think one of the best things about sewing is that we can fit things to our individual bodies. Whether you're very tall, whether you're very short, whether you have a thick waist, whether you have a tiny waist, we all are individuals. We all are unique and beautiful, and we don't have to settle for ready-to-wear that kind of fits okay. Learning how to fit elevated my sewing. Over the years, I've purchased so many sewing books just to glean whatever information I could get out of them. When we moved cross country, I did have to donate about half of my sewing book collection. What that did is made me really think about which ones do I use most. One thing I do want to mention before I get into my favorite fitting books, especially if you're just learning how to fit, don't overfit your garments. I think that's a temptation. I know it was for myself when I first started fitting. Every time I would look at one of these books and I'd go, well, I have that wrinkle. I need to fix that. I have that. I need to fix that. It's not necessarily a fitting issue. You have to have some movement in your clothing. You have to have some room to move. So when I'm taking pictures and I'm standing up, everything looks fabulous, but I have to make sure that I can bend over and pick something up, that I can reach forward to hug my husband. I can sit down in a chair without my waistband being too tight. I mean, there's a fine line between learning how to fit and learning that you need to have some ease and movement in your clothing. If you followed my channel for a while, you know that I almost always have to do a full bust adjustment. I didn't understand why things weren't fitting me properly. And that's what led me to start learning about fitting and pattern alterations through books and seminars. Here are my 6 favorite sewing books for fitting. First up is Fit for Real People, Patty Palmer. If you do not have this book in your sewing library, I highly recommend that you get this book in your sewing library. I purchased this book when it came out new. I think it was the late 90s. There's a newer version. I haven't purchased it, so I can't tell you what the difference is between the two. The illustrations and fashions are going to be dated because it's from the 90s, but the information remains the same. I remember doing this. The body graph, when I first got the book, that body graph, which they explain step by step how to do that, that's going to help you identify, do you have sloping shoulders? Do you have broad shoulders? Do you have a narrow back? Just all types of little things that you might not be aware of for your own personal body. That's how I learned that I'm very, very long from my waist to my crotch. You know, back in junior high, I remember sewing a jumpsuit. It just never fit in through here. When I did that graph, I understood why. So little things like that are going to help you in your fitting journey. There is just so much information in this book. They talk about their approach to fitting, a little bit of history of pattern sizing. They talk about buying the right size pattern, how to analyze your body, what about ease? And then they show you step by step how to make alterations for your back, your neck, your chest, darts, bust, shoulder, armholes, so much. And I really appreciate that they show examples in the book of techniques being used on a variety of different people. Now, Patty Palmer also does the tissue fitting technique. And over the years, they have trained people who become certified in the tissue fitting technique. So if it's something that you want to learn and you can't quite grasp it from the book instructions, because it does walk you through it, go to their website and look for those certified experts. Not affiliated, just really like Patty Palmer and the information that she shares with the sewing community. There's also a fitting book for pants. This also is a really great reference if you struggle with fitting pants. It will talk about tissue fitting to identify places where you need to alter your pattern, and then it walks you through the pattern alterations. Do you need more in your waist? And I always say that as an example because I have a thick waist. Do you have a short rise? Do you have a long rise? Are you petite? Do you need to shorten your pattern at the thigh area or the calf area? Because there are different places that you shorten your pattern because you want your knee placement to be in the correct place. All types of little tips like that you will find in this book. This book shows fitting on a number of different ages and sizes. It talks about zippers and darts and proper fitting and how to identify what's not fitting correctly. It talks about contour waistline, faced waistline, pull-on pants, cuffs, welt pockets, lining, underlining, and there's a little section even on sewing pants for men. Just a very great resource. Another fitting book that I reference is Fitting Finesse by Nancy Zeman, the late Nancy Zeman. Just a little side note, I had a chance to meet her at a sewing expo. I was working in a booth with one of my girlfriends who used to sell quilting sewing patterns, and it was the sewing expo that was sponsored by Nancy Zeman and her company. And this woman was so kind, so gracious. She went to every single booth exhibitor and spent 5 minutes, 10 minutes, thanking them, asking about them. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. That was just a little side note. This book, this is the one that I reference when I want to do a pivot and slide method. This is where I learned the pivot and slide method. This book will walk you through it step by step. There are no photographs in here. It is just illustrations. This book starts with some fitting facts, choosing the right size, measuring, those type of things. It goes over blouse, dress, and jacket fitting. It goes over shortcuts and specialized fittings, such as dolman sleeves, yokes, those type of things. It goes over fitting skirts and also some tips on fitting pants. And then fine-tuning the fit. It talks about pattern pivot points, drawing reference lines, those type of things. The Fitting and Pattern Alteration, a multi-method approach. So there's multiple authors on this one, and I bought this book after attending a seminar by the authors at a sewing expo in the mid-90s in the Twin Cities. I'm very fortunate because back in the mid-90s, there were multiple sewing expos, and one of them focused really heavily on garment sewing. So I was able to take a lot of classes and learn a lot of information from sewing experts, such as the authors of this book, Sandra Betsina, Linda Lee, really great sewing teachers. As I said, I purchased this book after taking the seminar, and I really didn't understand it at the time. This goes through how to alter a pattern with the pivot and slide method. It also talks about the slash method. It also helps you identify where you may need to alter your pattern. There was another book that they published that I had purchased and I cannot find it, and I suspect it was donated when we moved cross country. Great book to add to your library right here. This book starts out with a lot of text. It talks about the theory. It talks about selecting and using the right equipment, evaluating your figure, selecting patterns. You'll learn how to recognize good fit and how to fit a garment. Methods of fitting, pinned pattern method, trial garment method, measurement method, comparing body measurements to a pattern. It covers methods of fitting and methods of pattern alteration, and then personalized patterns and slopers. Then it gets into your illustrated alteration guide, hip area, legs, neck, shoulders, rib cage, arms. So much information, very well laid out and illustrated. Fast Fit, Sandra Betsina. I think some people like her teaching style and others maybe not as much. I personally really like her teaching style. She's just very down to earth. I also had an opportunity to meet her before at an expo and spend about 10-15 minutes at her booth just chatting with her. Very, very nice lady. She also has contributed so much to the sewing community. This book is a great reference if you just want to identify quickly why something isn't working. There are illustrations that will identify what I don't want to say problem, because it's not a problem. It's just a deviation from the pattern. That's all. We don't have problems. It's just something that doesn't fit the standard pattern. If you have a bit of a tummy, I have a little bit of a tummy. This is where I learned how to do an adjustment for a little bit of a tummy. It'll talk about thin legs, knock knees, broad shoulders, narrow back, all types of things you can find in this book. This book includes fitting facts such as what is a good fit, taking your body measurements, and then all about alterations. There's a sequence for alterations where you begin, how do you alter a multi-size pattern? And then it goes into the areas of alterations. Tall or short, your back, shoulders, sleeves, neckline, bust and upper body, pants and skirts. One thing that I always like about Sandra Betsina books is there's always little photos of her wearing garments that she has sewn. Perfect Fitting book by Sarah Veblen. This book has lots and lots and lots of photographs if you prefer photographs to help you identify where you need to alter patterns. Excellent information. I don't reference this as much just because it's a newer book and I haven't used it as much as Fit for Real People. Definitely a lot of great information in here. This book is filled with photographs, so if you're a visual learner, this will be a great one for you. This talks about pattern and fitting basics, the fundamentals of fitting muslins. You want to keep that muslin balanced, fundamentals of altering patterns, and then it goes over how to develop your ability and the process of fitting garments. You'll learn fitting bust, back, sides, shoulders, set-in sleeves, raglan sleeves, waist, hip, pants, skirts, jackets. The last fitting book in my sewing library, definitely not the least, Smart Fitting Solutions by Kenneth King. You can't go wrong with anything by Kenneth King. That man has so much knowledge. That's one of my wish lists, bucket list. I would love to take a class with him in person. So much information. This is an excellent, excellent book. This is fairly new. This is from 2018, and that's why it doesn't look like it is as used as the Fit for Real People. Remember, I've had that book for years and years and years. This one I've only had since 2018. Very valuable information. He helps you identify wrinkles, how to alter your pattern to fit. Highly recommend this book also. Another book that has lots and lots of photographs that can help you if you're a visual learner. This is all about reading wrinkles and learning how to fix them. There are 6 different models that he shows examples on, shows what the wrinkles are, how to read it, and then how to alter the pattern to correct those wrinkles. It also discusses essential measuring points as well as wearing and design ease. My favorite sewing books for fitting. If you have any questions about any of these books, leave them in the comments for me below. I hope you have a blessed day. Happy sewing.